Kids who get smartphones earlier become adults with worse mental health. There is so much instant dismissal of this entire idea that smartphones are harmful in this thread, most of which is just, correlation is not causation. Yes, correlation does not equal causation. But when it makes logical sense why there would be correlation, there is no way to actually measure causation. We can't exactly give kids placebo phones, we keep seeing the same correlation over and over again, why is it being written off so immediately? Smartphones give children the ability to bully each other at a scale unlike any other. Smartphones give children the ability to see everyone who is smarter than they are, prettier than they are, and so on. Smartphones give children a new avenue for social exclusion. Smartphones make every single child afraid that what they are doing is being recorded by someone else. Smartphones make every child hungry for validation from strangers, and makes them do crazy things to get said validation. Writing off all of this and boldly claiming that smartphones aren't the problem, it's all just coincidental correlation, makes no sense.
Smartphones give children the ability to bully each other at a scale unlike any other. No, social media does. I think it's important to be specific about that, because a smartphone is just a tool, same as a laptop or a desktop computer is. When I was a kid, there was plenty of bullying that went on via AIM. Having access to e.g. Wikipedia is of enormous benefit to young people. Having the means to easily call your parents if you end up in an emergency situation is beneficial. It's possible to use a smartphone without social media. It's possible to set up a child's smartphone in such a way that their access to social media is limited, if not totally removed. There is so much instant dismissal of this entire idea that smartphones are harmful in this thread. Emo.hn has always had a strong anti-censorship streak, usually for good reasons. But it starts to get a bit weird and fuzzy when kids are involved, as if protecting them from the harmful aspects of the internet is no different than big government censorship.
But the form factor of technology necessarily alters our relationship to it. Compared to a laptop or desktop PC, a smartphone is a constant presence, always in your kid's pocket or backpack, easily snuck under a desk for a distraction from a boring lecture, easily used by friends or bullies to record you unnoticed. Besides that, parents can learn to restrict their kids' phones from social media use, but that seems like a weak protection, which many kids learn to break, and an unnecessary burden when you could simply give your kid a dumb phone for emergency use.
You could simply give your kid a dumb phone for emergency use. I think you got it backwards. The emergency case is just the excuse parents use. In reality, it is about social pressure, not emergency use. All the other kids have phones, why can't I? Real phones with apps and games and shit. FFS, most parents will shove up an iDevice to their toddlers so they can play Angry Birds or whatever, instead of caring for them more actively.
FFS, most parents will shove up an iDevice to their toddlers so they can play Angry Birds or whatever, instead of caring for them more actively. This is such a 2010 way of thinking. Now they just hand their kids the YouTube app, signed into their parents' account, and let autoplay babysit their kid for hours a day.
No, social media does. This is like the guns don't kill people, people kill people argument. Sure, smartphones are just a tool, but they're a tool used to access social media. Also, I'd argue it's not just social media causing this issue. AI filters that make you look more beautiful are commonplace now. Children see themselves through these filters, and it may impact their self-esteem, e.g., why do I look beautiful in the photo, but not in real life? This is like the guns don't kill people, people kill people argument. Con. Guns are dumb. Smartphones are smart. It's entirely possible to set up a smartphone in a way that blocks access to certain apps, limits how many hours you can use an app in a day, etc., etc. The only way your parallel works is if guns had the ability to selectively target bad guys.
Smartphone equals pushy social media in your pocket 24/7. In practice, I suspect that amongst high schoolers, the ratio of time spent between Wikipedia and social media, and gaming as well, heavily favors the latter.
Gotta love the correlation is not causation crowd. Do they think Hayden and others haven't considered that? It's like the first thing that everyone considers. I personally think that HN dismisses these ideas because it would mean dire consequences for their high-paying entrenched employers.
My kids don't have phones. They are the only ones among their peers who don't have a phone. I told them they can get one when they write an app and get it listed on the App Store, not before. Most people I tell this to are impressed. The only time I got crucified was the last time I mentioned it on HN. This seems to be a particular bone to pick that HN users have.
Because that argument can have no refutation, or any clear verification. You won't find a control group that lives the same life as these kids, but without a cell phone. You can't teleport these kids 50 years earlier, etc. So we're bound to hear hot takes that have no other substantiation than it makes logical sense. My main issue with these hot takes is that it doesn't help, as smartphones aren't going away. In contrast, we already understand the effects of Instagram on teenagers, for instance. But nothing is actually happening on this front. So this whole debate on whether smartphones are to blame seems like a distraction from a more actionable why isn't Instagram more regulated?
This is one of those obvious correlations that for some reason everyone needs to question. It's not the cell phone itself that's the problem. It's the addictive content readily accessible therein. I'm no Luddite, but it's pretty obvious that humans aren't meant to be bent over little black rectangles all day, addicted to our own insecurities.
There was a period of time from about 2011 to 2013 where it felt like many parents would complain about everyone being on their phone. Then they started using them too and stopped complaining.
As a parent, I'm seeing a very clear division in parenting style among my peers. Some parents allow screen time with moderation and caution because they know what excessive use leads to. The other group sees nothing wrong, and screens are everywhere all the time. My friend circles are exclusively in the first group, from daycare to schools to friends. So much so that at first I thought everyone was like this. Then I stepped outside of my bubble and watched some parents hand their kids phones and tablets like they were automatic babysitters. They saw it as normal. One person explained to me that it was a tool to help build his relationship with his child by making them not upset because they were happier with the phone. It blew my mind that he didn't realize that he was cultivating an addiction.
Smartphones and social media are tools. Drugs are tools. Both can be used or abused.
The obvious correlations are the ones that need to be questioned the most.
I'm not sure how you would control for this. I was born in 1981, not long after the Vietnam War ended, and my dad was a veteran with PTSD who never went to a therapist. My home life sucked, and I came out of it with pretty severe depression. I became addicted to computers as a means of escape, and thankfully, luckily, it turned into a lucrative career. However, even though my home life sucked, society as a whole felt much better than it does currently, and I still wanted nothing to do with it. Is it possible these kids now just have a front row seat to witness their generation being systematically torn down in front of them before they even have a chance to get a footing? My parents sucked. Their whole world sucks. I have my doubts that it's about the phones. It seems more likely that their adult problems are the student loans, the cost of rent, the lack of jobs, the corporate greed, and on and on.
I have my doubts that it's about the phones. It seems more likely that their adult problems are the student loans, the cost of rent, the lack of jobs, the corporate greed, and on and on. That wouldn't explain the sharp reductions in mental health among girls around 2012. Something definitely seemed to be going on between 2010 and 2014. Cell phone usage patterns could be a part of it, but I'd like to see error bars on these charts.
The causation could easily run the other way. In particular, kids that have worse mental health use phones as a coping mechanism. What kind of kid can resist the lure of a phone until she's 18? Only one with very strong mental fortitude.
It's not smartphones, it's just constant access to social media. Someone tell the local high school here, please. They definitely won't listen to me and require that every student have a smartphone.
Yeah, I'm not giving my daughter a smartphone or a tablet. She might be a weird outcast, but oh well, it's not worth the possible damage to her mental health. I think in a few decades we'll look back at this generation of parents who just shoved smart devices in their kids' hands with no filter akin to handing kids cigarettes. It turns them into sociopaths. I have some younger General Z cousins, and it's just weird to watch them film everything they do and post it to social media. Oh, I'm meeting a friend I haven't seen in months. Let me set up my phone in the driveway and film us hugging, like it's an all-natural reaction that we totally didn't film multiple times.
Flagged.
It is even worse because the participants in the survey were not randomly selected. They instead must choose to visit the Sapiens Labs website to complete the survey. Taking the survey is encouraged through advertising. I can't say for certain, but I imagine that voluntarily visiting a website to complete a mental health survey might appeal more to those with mental health issues, thus skewing the data. Also, you may have some people that visit to purposely give false data. Very much not unheard of in internet polls. I have no real idea how much either of these have affected the data, but it makes me very suspect of the data. If you can't trust the data, you can't trust any studies based upon it. Reply.